It says I'm live. Let's see if there's anybody there who can tell me if y'all can hear me, because last time it did not go particularly well. Hello, Barbara in Bethesda. Excited you are here. I also have rolled over my pants, so I need to readjust my pants. You know what? Um I got my piles. I normally cover up my piles of stuff, but I did not today. I am Barbara Benson, and I am an independent knitwear designer who makes videos on this here YouTube thing. We do a live stream every Thursday, the last Thursday of the month, so that we can just chat and have fun. And it is technically an Ask Me Anything. Hello, Mark the bass player. Excited you're here. Hello. I'm going to go out on a limb and say HLLY is Holly, but maybe not. Hello. So glad you're here. Oh, sorry, my pants. I have really, really, really big pants on. So this is the leg. Like, this is one leg of my pants. This is like the leg part, and they're really big, and I'm rolling over them with as I'm adjusting my chair. That word. Hello, Sally Thibodeau. Thibodeau is a great word. And you are having fun in Louisiana? Are you in upper Louisiana, lower Louisiana? There's different parts of Louisiana. My husband is actually from northern Louisiana originally. I mean, but like he didn't live there very long. They moved to Atlanta fairly quickly after, but he's spent a lot of time in northern Louisiana, which is very different from like Nolens area. Hello, Debbie. Sunny, warm Wisconsin. That is nice. So you're near the Gulf of Mexico. And so, yeah, so you're in the southern part. Yeah, my husband, his family is from Minden, Louisiana, which is like 45 minutes west of Shreveport, like on that main road that goes through the top and goes to Texas. So it's like almost halfway between Shreveport and the Texas border. I went out there and visited a couple of times, got freaked out about there being trees in the middle of their lakes. I'm like, this is not where we keep trees. Trees do not belong in the middle of the lake. But it really is a very different kind of beauty than the lakes that I am accustomed to, but cool. And it's definitely got that that gothic vibe. It's got that, there's just something about it that's really cool. Adjust my shirt. You had snow? That's wrong. We had snow in Florida, not here. We did not. I mean, if it snows here, there's something very, very, very wrong. Because we are on the coast and we are in a little bit, we are considered southern Florida. So it would be very bad. We had the snow in northern Florida in the panhandle, but we are down on the bottom part. And if we had snow, it'd be a bad, bad thing. Snows, you're Nova Scotia. That seems like where they keep the snow, I believe. Very cool. I'm exciting. So we already are international, and that's amazing. Hello, Cindy in Pennsylvania. How was my trip to Washington? My trip to Washington. Wow, has it been that long since we've talked? Yeah, I guess it is January. The trip to Washington was great. It was just myself and my son. Now, my son just turned 18 in December. So, he's technically adult, but not adult enough to drive a rental car. So he was a little frustrated because he's one of those guys that likes to be the driving person. So whenever we go do stuff together, once he hit driving age, he started driving, and he likes to, and I'm like, I don't care, I'll let you drive. But he could not drive the rental car. So he was my navigator, and we did a lot of interesting stuff. You had to cover up your ponds, Heidi? 6 inches of snow. That is a lot of snow. That is just a crazy statement, Debbie. New Orleans had more snow than Wisconsin. That is just, you know what? But when we were in Seattle, Seattle had was warmer than Florida, was warmer than Sarasota. So Shores, hello. I'm so excited to see you, Joke. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. Is it too late to wish me a happy 2025? Actually, no, because Lunar New Year was just like 2 days ago. So it's New Year all the time. It's the year of the snake now, which is very exciting. Snake. So Seattle was really cool. It was overcast the entire time because that's how they roll. And we drove around a lot. We did a lot of driving. I've decided that, okay, so if you've never been to Southern Florida, um, and especially like the coastal area where I am, it's flat. It's flat. There's just flat. There's nothing but flat. It's just flat pancake. I determined that Seattle has way too much up. Like any direction I turned to go, I was going up. And when I say up, I don't mean like a little hill. I mean like up. Like felt like I was like chunk 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 on a roller coaster up. And I was like, how can I always be going up? And I very rarely felt like I was going down. It was just all up. And I'm like, this city has entirely too much up. We determined that we have 3 vehicles because we have 3 drivers, and we are probably going to have to get rid of slash replace one of our vehicles because it is a manual transmission. And the idea of driving a manual transmission in Seattle is just I mean, I can, like, I had a manual transmission when I lived in New York, and I have driven in really hilly areas. Like, I went to school in northern South Carolina, which is the Appalachians, and so I definitely can drive on inclines, but driving a manual transmission in heavy traffic and like having to like stop on inclines with cars in front of you and cars behind you, it's not a peaceful kind of thing. It's a very stressful kind of thing. So I think we're gonna have to get rid of the manual transmission car, just because it'll be a giant pain in the butt. Oh, you have trees in your ponds. Oh, in the panhandle. That's interesting. You know what? Your computer and I aren't talking well tonight. Oh, you probably have a voice to text, because every once in a while when I'm typing, I'll get like one key off in one direction and I type and it's all just gibberish. I'm like, oopsie, I gotta reset my fingers. Yes, incline. Hello, Elizabeth. So yes, Elizabeth has asked if we will be moving, and 95% sure. There's many a slip twists the cup in the lip. But 95% sure we're going to be moving probably in July, late June, early July, after my son graduates from high school. And he's decided that he would like to go to the University of Washington. So what we're going to have to do is move there and live there, and he'll take a gap year because it takes a year to establish residency, so that when he applies to the school, it can be with in-state tuition, because out-of-state tuition is just utterly and completely unaffordable for us. So I mean, it's a factor of like 150% more expensive than in-state. So that is the plan, and we're pretty excited about trying out something new and going someplace new and exciting. So it's exciting and terrifying at the exact same time, but y'all can look forward. There are like 5 or 6 different yarn stores in Seattle. So I will definitely be making videos and exploring the yarn stores. And actually, I have yarn to keep it knitting related. I did buy yarn while I was in Seattle. So I went to a couple different yarn stores, and this I'm going to do my best to do a swatch lab with it, because I just thought it was super interesting. This is the Alpaca Yarn Company, and it's called Paca Cinta. This is 100% alpaca, 1.75 ounces, 50 grams, and it's 17 yards. Okay? Look at it. It's like it's like a giant I-cord. It's like a tape. I don't know if it's woven or if it's knit. I think it might. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But isn't it interesting? I'm definitely not going to be able to do the full size um I definitely am not going to be able to do the full size swatch from Swatch Lab, but like I have no intention of making anything out of this because it's just going to be a swatch because it's only 17 yards. But it's really a very interesting, and I like grabbing things at yarn stores that are simply something I have never seen before. So that is one, and this is says it's recommended a US size 15 to 17 needle. So I'm going to do that. Woven. Yes. So it's woven and color crafted in the United States, manufactured in Peru. So that is one of the things I purchased. Okay, let's see here. You will send me some socks, Karen. You don't have to send me socks, but I really appreciate it. But yes, I actually, while we were there, it was cold enough that I actually wore cabbages and kings, and I wore the overdue mitts. I wore fingerless mitts and a big cowly scarf. But I mean, cabbage and kings is huge, and I wore that over my jacket, so it was really fun. Joke. I thought it was a knitted tube, but it specifically says it's woven. So it's almost impossible to see. It's so that is what its structure. I'm going to try to do a swatch lab and I'll pull it apart so you can see it, but it's really one of the most fascinating yarns I've seen in a while. Okay, Cindy, knit another hat in Hood River and Apple Yarns in Bellingham, Washington. Yes, and then there's like 45 minutes north of Seattle is Stilly River Yarn Knits. Stilly River Knits. It's another yarn store. There's all kinds of yarn stores, and hopefully I'll be able to get down to Portland. I might even like. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to make any friends. I mean, hopefully I'm going to make some friends, but I might go down to Portland because they have the Rose City Yarn Crawl, which apparently is really, really cool. So it's going to be a lot. I'm going to have to learn to knit garments to stay warm. That is a possibility. I might have to. Year-round sweater weather area. I definitely am. Now, the another yarn I purchased, and this one's kind of fallen apart. So this is called and this is the yarn store that's down in Pike Place. So it's like in city of Seattle. What was it called? Why Not Knit or something? No. Something about yarn. And this is called Coastal. And it's from Elemental Effects. Is it the yarn company, which is a really cool US-based yarn company. And this is 2 ounces, which is 56 grams. So it's essentially a half skein. It's fingering weight, 205 yards. But the reason why I got this one is because it's 50% Shiniko wool, 25% mulberry silk, and 25% Belgian flax. So it's flax, silk, and fancy wool. And it's got this beautiful texture and shine to it. Silk and flax, I don't know that I've seen it together. The wool gives it some softness that it would be lacking. So I'm looking forward to playing with this and seeing what it likes. But I thought that was really cool. You will never have a problem making friends. I don't know. It's hard to make friends when you're an old fart. But they do have Seattle has a really, really good knitting guild, is my understanding. So I'm excited about that. And using the knitting community as an in, and hopefully I'll be able to make some friends. So that is get a heated jacket or vest. You'll stay warm while you're out and about. Oh, wow. So here's the thing. Seattle isn't as cold as you would think because it's on the coast. It's temperate. And so while it's rainy, and the rain was weird, it wasn't like Florida rain. It's not like cold. It's not like Minnesota or Chicago cold. But it's definitely way colder than where I live right now. What is this receipt? Does this receipt have the name of the store on it? So Much Yarn. So that's the name of the store that I got the coastal in. And that is down at Pike Place. We went to Pike Place specifically because my son, one of my son's best friends, works as he has his, part-time job in high school is Starbucks, and he wanted to take a picture of the original Starbucks for his friend, and he sent it to him and said, "Here's your spawn point." So that was that. So the other place I went, which was really cool, and I'm very excited about, is I went to Hazel Knits. And once we get out there, I might see if I can speak to the owner. I think her name was Kim, about actually, so she has her dyeing facility is in Seattle. And so where I went was a smaller facility. And apparently it was originally her dyeing facility, but she outgrew it. So she got a bigger facility and she turned that original dyeing facility into a open to the public yarn store. But it's not like a regular yarn store. It is only her yarn. So it's kind of like I don't know if I'd call it a factory store kind of situation, but it's like only her yarn, but all of her yarn. And it was absolutely amazing. I posted a picture of it on my Instagram, and I bought these two yarns. And this was really cool because this is her worsted weight yarn. So it's the worsted weight yarn, and it's called Cadence, and it's 100% superwash merino. These are half skeins, so it's approximately 100 yards. So I got this to try to do. I was thinking maybe doing a colorwork hat because together it's 200 yards. So this color is Aquarius, and it's falling. This color is Mandarin. What do you think? Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So I am looking at the way the color is coming across through my webcam. And to me, the on the webcam, on my picture, this looks blue, but in person, this is a teal. It has a definitely more green cast to it. And this in person isn't as yellow as it's coming across. It's more of a burnt orange as opposed to the really, really bright yellow orange. I have hundreds of friends here. I really appreciate that, my golfer. And I adore you guys, and I do consider you my friends. But when I need to go someplace, I can't just take my computer with me. I need to have like some in-person friends too. But if any of y'all are in Seattle, I would love to meet you. So do you like them? I'm excited about them together. I love like teal and like this kind of orangey red. Christina C. I joined a few minutes late. My apologies. When you buy at Longo shops, do you have a project in? Them's fighting words, Christina. Christina is asking, when I buy the yarn at local shops, do I have a project in mind, or do I buy based on the yarn texture, color, and then find a project? So I buy yarn because something about the yarn excites me. The three that I just showed that you just missed. So the thing that excited me about this is that it is a different put up than I'm used to. This is, instead of 200 yards for worsted weight, this is 100 yards. So I really like this half skein. I think that this kind of half skein for worsted is really cool and great for color work. If you were doing like a color work sweater with a color work yoke, I think it's really great that she offers these half skeins, but also fell in love with colors. This one I got because of the fiber content, because it's the flax, the silk, and the wool, which is an unusual combination, and it had a really cool texture, and I just picked out a color I like. And this absolutely bonkers one is because it was the strangest yarn structure I've ever seen. I've never knit with it. I just want to play with it. Most of the time when I am buying yarn at a yarn store, like the first two, this might actually become a project. I think I'm going to try to design something with this. This has a 50-50 shot of just being swatch material, or getting made into something. This is just going to be a swatch. I purely purchased it to make a swatch to try to understand this yarn better. So why I buy yarn. And another reason I like, if I go into a yarn store, I'm almost always going to buy yarn or a book or something. And a lot of times I am solely buying it to support the local yarn store because I strongly believe that local yarn stores are the backbone of the entire knitting and crochet industry. And I want to support them, but also I want yarn. I will buy stuff and have absolutely no idea what I'm gonna do with it. I will buy stuff and actually have an idea what I'm gonna do with it, but there's no predicting what I am doing with anything. So, like, when I worked at a yarn store, I don't think I would ever ask people, what they were gonna do with the yarn, because sometimes you just need to buy the yarn because it needs to live with you, because you need to have it in your possession. It's a pet. That's sometimes. So you took your first living in a Seattle yarn store. Yeah, there's a really interesting yarn stores. Oh, your son is in the Seattle serving in the military. That would be super cool, Mark, the bass player. That would be super cool. We won't be moving until the summer, so that's the thing. Cindy, I buy because it's pretty and we'll make something someday. Exactly. And you know what? The thing that I always would compare it to, especially when people would come into the store and express concern or like they shouldn't buy some yarn just because they fell in love with it. Um, I compare it to people who buy wine. There are people who buy wine just because they know it's a good vintage or because they know it was this. They have any number of reasons of buying it, but they're not gonna drink it. Are they gonna build like they might have like they have wine cellars, like they build whole rooms for the wine to live in. And they might go in and like rotate it occasionally, but they very rarely end up drinking it. It's because it's something that brings you joy. So I consider yarn to be more of like, the people who have all that kind of wine, they're considered connoisseurs. Like, they're a connoisseur of wine. Well, I'm a connoisseur of yarn. And you definitely have to go in and rotate it and pet it and make sure it's not dusty. And if at some day you have the perfect meal to pair it with, then yes, it might actually get consumed. But it's okay to wait and just be happy that you have it. So, I mean, that's my plan on it. Will I keep our monthly podcast? I will do my best to keep the monthly podcast. There is a possibility that there will be a chunk of time where it's just not feasible. I mean, as I said, we are 3 people and we have 3 vehicles. There will be some point where we are driving across the country to get there. And so if that overlaps with the end of the month, then it might be problematic to actually so we might miss one. And really, I mean, I don't think we could have picked a further away place and still remained in the lower 48 states, you know, to get, I mean, because Florida to Seattle is really, I mean, unless we were starting in Miami or Key West, I think is the only way that we could even get further than what we're currently doing. So it's a haul. I'm gonna have to go out to Seattle one more time. It's probably gonna be in April to actually look at properties to rent and figure out, set up so that we can have some place to move to. It's gonna be super exciting and absolutely terrifying at the same time. I need to, you know what? Somebody, okay. Holly is asking, I'm assuming it's Holly. Will I need a separate U-Haul for your yarn in the move? Um, I honestly think you probably be surprised how much yarn I have. It's probably not as much as you think. I have a good chunk of yarn. I mean, I'm not saying I don't have a good chunk of yarn, but at some point, I quit really acquiring yarn. I initially acquired it at a fairly hefty pace, but I quit because what happens is like a lot of the yarn I have is yarn I acquired, but it's a no longer made, the color isn't made anymore, and those kind of yarns I almost can't knit with because if I design something and knit it in a color that other people can't find, then they get a little cranky at me because a lot of times people want to replicate exactly what you have knit. So there's a lot of stuff in my stash that I can't use for work. And at this point, the only knitting I do is for work. So I've quit at knowing that I've quit adding to it. I only get like I get ones and twos, or I buy specifically because I know there's something I want to make. That said, I do have a ridiculous amount of yarn. I do have too much yarn. It is definitely a problem. Okay. Yarn buy. Someday I will find a use for that yarn. Okay, you asked because you buy local to support your yarn store, but rarely with a plan. It's okay to not have a plan. It's totally okay to not have a plan. It's okay to buy the yarn. One really cool way, though, is to buy that yarn and then go into Ravelry and search projects that other people have made with that yarn, and that might like get you popping. Yes, my next house needs a yarn cellar. My golfer, are you asking, is it going to be the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time? So 7 p.m. Eastern time would be 765 would be like 4 o'clock in Seattle. I don't know. That is just not something I haven't thought that far ahead. I still am at the point where I'm thinking about how I'm going to pack stuff and how we're going to sell my son's boat that's sitting in the backyard and how I'm going to get rid of my aquarium. And I mean, there's I'm sorry, but what time the live streams are going to be is not high on my list of decisions I need to make right now. I have thought about it. I need to figure out. I don't know. It might have to move a little bit. I don't know. I'm going to be in a different time zone. So it's a 3-hour change. So I don't know. I would say if I moved it so like I started at 5 and then that for Eastern time zone, it started at 8, would that cause a lot of problems for y'all? Or would earlier be better? I don't know. We're going to have to figure it out together. You support your local yarn store in Ontario. Excellent. That is fantastic. I hope I don't have to skip it too many times, but moving's a lot. It's a whole lot. Summoning portals, that would be fantastic. I need a little teleportation device, please. Thank you. It really all of my yarn lives, and actually I have a video on this. All of my yarn lives in plastic containers that I got at, you know what? Hang on. Here I come. All of my yarn and knitwear lives in these containers. You can get these containers at the Container Store, which is one of my favorite places in the entire world. And I specifically use this style of container because so it has all the locks, and it is, if you look here, it's got the squishy, it's watertight. It's watertight. It is insect proof. So, and you can see this box is entirely full of samples. I mean, it's got yarn in it, but it's not yarn to be knit. It is knitted yarn. These are all samples. These are all mosaic samples. Everything in here is slip stitch color work. This is all stuff from my book. There's Golden Lion Throne. Y'all ever seen Golden Lion Throne? Golden Lion Throne. This is the very first mosaic lace piece I designed. This is Golden Lion Throne. It needs to be reknit. It's old and the color's faded on it. but I think it's still nice. It's, it's just I like wearing it when I've worn it like this. I just wear it like this, and with this with them hanging down in the back, gives me a very, like, 1940s, maybe 20s, but the thing where you'd have on, like, the long gloves and the long cigarette holder and leaning up against a open air car and everything, but so, yeah, this is Golden Lion Throne. So that's the first mosaic lace piece I designed. This it was me wanting to make this design that made me come up with the idea. Also right here on the top is this is the very first mosaic piece before I even added lace to it. And so that is this is No Mr. Bond, I Expect You to Die. This is a men's evening scarf and it's mosaic and I wanted to design something that was very masculine. So it's very angular and it even has chains on the edge, but it's a short, wide scarf because it's designed to like go with like a tuxedo or something like that. But it's nice and drapey. It's silk and llama. It was really cool. do, 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 do. Yeah, Joanne's declared bankruptcy again. Yeah, they're the best is the things. Okay, Christina, the lacework and color work are stunning. It's definitely got Art Deco. It very much is supposed to be Art Deco. I have, if you look at a lot of my work, it is heavily Art Deco influenced. I really like both the Art Deco and the Art Nouveau movements. And a lot of my work is really heavily influenced by that. And you know what's really funny is I didn't even realize it. I didn't until I was having a conversation with some designers and someone asked me what my design style was. I'm like, I don't have a style. I just design the stuff I want to design. And the other designer sitting next to me, because my answer, because a woman asked, and there was a designer sitting next to me, and I was like, I don't know, I just kind of design stuff. And the other designer sitting next to me, who was a friend of mine, she's like, oh, she's heavily Art Deco and she's got this Nouveau influence. And she starts explaining my style to this person. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Because I could not have verbalized it, but I'm like, no, that makes total sense because I love Art Deco and I love Art Nouveau. So you'll see that a lot in what I do. Irulan is another really good example of that. Irulan has a very Art Deco vibe to it. And the colors were very Art Deco. It was on purpose. But yeah, that's all. This is just gonna hang out there. So that's a whole box full of knitted stuff. But it's in that, so it keeps it. So I won't be vacuum sealing anything. I will just move those boxes from point A to point B because they are already packed. Did you knit, Elizabeth? Did you knit Golden Lion Throne? Nice. Container Stores bankrupt? No, I'm sorry. I understand a lot of people are upset about Joanne's being bankrupt, but I'm way hurt by Container Store. I love Container Store. My golfer. On the topic of knitting needles, I received half a set of 4-inch Lantern Moon needles at Christmas. I like the needles, but I am disappointed in the cables that are much stiffer than the Chow Goose. Oh, that's a shame. That is unfortunate. I do love the needles. I could never use 4-inchers though. I have to have the 5-inch needles because the way I hold my needles. It's a bummer that you don't like the cables. I wonder if they'll relax some as you use them. That's frustrating. Oh, Mr. Bond, Elizabeth's Mr. Bond. Yeah, Mr. Bond's really straightforward. I think it's fun. Also, I forced my husband to climb Stone Mountain in the middle of June to model it, so that was super fun times. It's just it was fun. Okay. So here's the thing. So when I went to Seattle, so this is my plan. I took my son, and what we did is we got on Zillow and found properties. I mean, we can't get anything right now, and they're going to be gone by the time. We found properties that fit our parameters. And so what we would do is we would put he I would have him put that into Google Maps, and we would get the directions, and it would tell me to where to go, and we would drive to just this house that was up for rent. And once we were there, I would have him find other houses in roughly the same price range in its general vicinity, and we would drive to those locations. And in doing so, it forced us to drive through the neighborhoods. And so it gave me an opportunity, and we would drive around the neighborhoods to get an idea of what these neighborhoods were like and if they vibed with us. And then what I would have him do is find the local grocery store. It's like the people who live in this neighborhood, where do they shop for groceries? So I would go to the grocery store, and we would go to there, and then we would get out of the car and go into the grocery store and just wander around the grocery store. And that would give us a really good idea of what the like what the population of that area was, because the people who are going to be in your local Safeway are going to be people who live in that area most of the time. And so it gave us an idea of what their age was and what their ethnic diversity was and all that kind of stuff. So what we would do is we went to all these different areas, checked out the neighborhoods, checked out the grocery stores, and tried to get an idea of where we might want to be, because there's a whole bunch of different neighborhoods in Seattle and we don't know anything about any of them. It was a hilarious one. One of the really interesting things about all the grocery stores is that each of them had apparently their state issued Starbucks, because every single one of the grocery stores we went into had a Starbucks in the grocery store. And we went to this one Safeway that we drove up to the Safeway. We were driving into the thing, and in the parking lot of the Safeway was a drive-through Starbucks that looked like it'd been there for like maybe 30 years. I mean, it didn't look like one of the drive-through Starbucks that we have here that's like built. It's like, it was like wooden and like slapped together. And then when we went into the Safeway, there was a Starbucks in the Safeway. So there's like a Starbucks in the parking lot and a Starbucks in the grocery store. So it was just like, I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to learn how to drink coffee if I move to Seattle. So that was fun. And, we found some areas that we thought from like just looking online might work for us, and realized that they wouldn't work for us. And it's just, there's a lot of really interesting areas, but fine. And actually, my son's primary concern was he had to find, and he's narrowed down to like this zone, because there's a specific internet provider that he thinks we have to have. He's got y'all's back, okay? He's like, "Mom, if you don't have decent internet, then you can't do your live streams. It'll be too slow." This is how he's selling it to me. So he's drawn like a little line on the map that's the area of where this particular internet provider that has the speed level that he thinks is acceptable that we got to look at. So that narrowed things down, because it's a huge city. So you got to narrow things down. But yeah, so you should thank my son. He's got y'all. He got y'all's back. Oh, you have the short cables to make the 16 and the 20-inch. That definitely could make it a little bit more rigid. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear how the longer cords work for you, my golfer. Okay, so we had some needle questions. Anybody else have any knitting or yarn questions they've been hanging on to, they've been thinking about? I showed you the yarns I bought. I have a new, if you're on my Instagram, hang on. If you're on my Instagram, you saw that I'm working on a new chart. I don't know if it'll ever become something. I almost fell down. These stupid pants. So I started working on, and I need to swatch this, but I don't know if it'll ever become anything. But I'm working on a new color work lace pattern, and I used the stitch maps. And so what I do is I put my lace pattern into the stitch map and print it out, and then I use colored pencils to color it in. and figure out what direction I want the color work to go. And so that's the stitch map, but this is something that people have a really hard time knitting from. And so then this is, did this morning, and then I'm going to be able to swatch. This is the chart. That's like your standardized chart that I need to swatch. And so I need to swatch this. I hope I have enough yarn, because I'm going to have to do this to see how it works. I got to do 2. So I'm going to have to cast on 52 stitches. So I'm casting on 52 stitches for a swatch, and it'll be a minimum of 24 rows. I should probably do 48 rows, but I don't know if I'm going to have enough yarn. I have like leftovers from something that I'm going to use, but this is the it's the chart. So we're going to see how that works out. It's kind of wild. Yes, I know Starbucks was started in Seattle, but I didn't know that it was so completely overwhelmingly ubiquitous. I mean, it is just everywhere. I was like, you can't go anywhere without hitting. Another thing that I figured out, of the 2 times we've gone to Seattle and we've tried several places, apparently people in Seattle don't know how to make barbecue. So that's going to be a loss for me. But they have really good salmon. So it's a trade-off always. Robin McAllister, you've put together a goddess figurine mosaic chart that I'm looking forward to swatching. Ooh, that'll be exciting. Tim Hortons. I've heard of Tim Hortons. I think they had Tim Hortons. I lived in New York for a while, and I think they had Tim Hortons there. I can't remember, though. It was a very long time ago. I'm talking like 1994. Very long time ago. Okay. So I'm not seeing any more knitting questions. So I had something that I thought, like an actual, like something I could show you, something knitting related, because I was doing something and I was like, hey, I could show the people on the live stream this. So we're going to share screen, and I'm going to see if I can get this to work. So select window or screen. So here. Okay. So this is my stuff. So I'm kind of in a creative, like, not, I mean, I'm so focused on other things. And it's one of the reasons why I'm working on that thing. So this is how I file everything. So like, here's shawls. This is the one that hopefully I'll be releasing in the next week or so, that I've already shown you guys. This is a hurricane season, but you can see that this is the Babs 2. This one is Rev It Up. And so these are all the different, there's all kinds of stuff. See, these are all the pictures that I took so I've got all of these. There's just so much. See, Yowza times 6, that's Cabbages and Kings. So if I go into Cabbages and Kings, these are all the photos. These are the raw photos from Cabbages and Kings. All the different, I don't know if I can even open it up, because these are NEF. NEF is the Nikon, but yeah, so these are all, when I say I take photo shoots, to get the like 6 to 8 pictures you guys see, I take lots and lots and lots of pictures. But so what I decided to do is here. So if you look here, this is the file for when I wrote the first book, and each of the different patterns, all 20 patterns, has its own file folder and everything. But this is what I'm going to show you. This is the ideas. So what it is I would brainstorm, and I would go through ideas, and I would put them in this folder. And then that was what all the working stuff to design these things. So if you go into ideas, so these are all ideas that I considered, and then like discarded for the book because they just weren't appropriate for the book. And it's just, and I don't know how this is going to work. So EKD right here is a the Envision Knit design file. So if I double click on this, okay, so it's, I wonder, okay, so what I'm going to have to do is stop sharing that and then select. Oh, you know what? I can just, whoop, that's not what I wanted. There we go. That works better. Okay, and what you're seeing in the background is, this is, here you go. This is what you're seeing in the background. This was a take your kid to work day. And that is a very old picture of my son, and that's my husband. So we're going to stick this back over here. And so now you can just see what's on this, my bonnet here. We'll make that go away. There you go. So this is the one repeat basket weave. So this is me playing with a basket weave and trying to incorporate lace into the color work and seeing what I would do. And if I go here, so we've got, there we go. So that is the mosaic basket weave. And then this was me putting lace into it and trying to decide what I wanted to do. So no, I don't want to do that. So all of this, everything in here is ideas, all different kinds of ideas that I thought about. And so like, look, the figure out lace. What was I doing? It's so funny because this is literally from 2016. And I actively don't remember doing half of this. I have no idea what was going through my mind when I was doing it. I'm like, what was I doing? Why did I do this? What was I trying to accomplish? And if I go over here, you can see, so that is the mosaic here. It's, you can really see it if you can sort of see that the shape. That is the mosaic that ended up being the Pinwheel Market bag. But apparently at one point I was trying to, and you can see, look, this is, didn't work, but lace is cool. These are notes to myself. So this is me trying to figure out the lace and how so this is trying to figure out how to integrate the lace into that particular mosaic. Here's second try. And I don't know what I was doing. And then here's lace mistake. So this was, I made a mistake, but I thought what happened was interesting with the lace. So I never probably, like, I mean, I may or may not have swatched this. I don't know. So I don't know what that is. No, I don't want to do that. Maybe it should be a blanket. I don't know. So I just go through here and see, because it's not that these are bad ideas and it's not that they won't work. It's just it wasn't working for the book because the book had a very specific set of parameters. But what happens is I get distracted by some other new idea and I end up never coming back to this. And then I do come back and I don't even remember what I was doing, but it's kind of like a mystery. And I'm like, I should knit this. Like, okay, so nested diamonds. So what am I doing here? So this is the one that I just showed you guys. So that can go. This is the EKD file. It's EKD file, right? So this is, but when I opened this up, this is where I was. And so I was doing something else here. You can see, actually, this one's kind of cool. Sometimes you can see better what's happening with the color work when I zoom it out, but that didn't work. But so you can see the color work is here and here and right here. Whereas the new one that I'm going to try to knit like tomorrow, it's I did something different with it. So, no, I'm not changing. Is anybody asking any questions? Anybody have any thoughts on this? Is it interesting at all? I just asking. So but I was looking through this and I want I mean, it's like what? Kinda circles. I named that kinda circles. What is that? I have no idea. I don't know what it looks like. So apparently, I don't know. I don't know. Apparently it makes something that looks kinda like circles. I would have to knit it because I don't remember what I was doing. So actually I named this 336 page 112. Hmm. What is that from? A lot of times I name it the book name, and so I can reference back to what the stitch I was using for inspiration. But I would literally just have to get out yarn and needles and knit this stuff to try to figure out what it was I was thinking about. And the thing is some of these are what is going on here? No, that popped up in the wrong place. Have I ever gone back to something in these notes and made a whole different design? Yes, made a whole different design, something completely different than where I was going, but I look at it and it gives me an idea and I go in a different direction and it just came in the different direction. You can knit following a chart. That is fantastic. Are those Excel files? No, these are not Excel files. This is a my charting application. It's called InVision Knit. Here, let me type that in. There we go. And this is a charting software. What so where is okay, so this one. I gotta show you this one. See this one here that's called Diagonal Wasp, right? You just I need you guys to understand. I need y'all to understand. This is a completely designed fingerless mitt. Like the whole thing's done. Is done. I was going through and I'm like, that's just done. It was completely if you go here and we go to there, right? Look at all these charts. Chart A, chart B, the gusset. I've like this is a whole design. I remember that was what where I ended up was these. The yarn I was using for this is the it's an alpaca from Knit Picks. And this I started and it just didn't work. This didn't work in the yarn. It wasn't working the way it needed to. The other thing is I was forcing the lace. Because it was Mosaic and Lace and that was the name of the book, I was forcing the lace on this, but I wanna kind of look at this because this is the diagonal wasp is the name. This is the wasp motif, and then this is a um, diagonal color work, and the lace is separate. So I just need to get some yarn and knit it and see if it works because I don't know if it actually works. But I think it works. But like, so this is diagonal 4 left. This I labeled swoopy for some reason. Um, there's another variation. So this is me taking a concept and working through. So this is diagonal left. This is a directional one. This is diagonal to the right. And it's just me working through a concept and then ending up. So like this is a whole pattern. And so there's chart A. That is the cuff. And it already has, this is chart B. So this is how the second chart works. And then this is the gusset that gets inserted. So I just need to knit it, but I gotta find the yarn. Um, so I just wanted to show y'all this because I thought you might find it interesting that and I will go, there's so many different places in my, um, in my knitting folder that has stuff like this, where it's just me coming up with ideas and thinking about stuff. Here's another ideas folder. All of this. all of this is charts and concepts and um I deco door. Well, I don't even know what I was doing here. Oh, so this was I had an idea that if I did stranded colorwork finger mittens to use Art Deco doors, most of them were French. And to the so this was me trying to figure out, see the motifs from Art Decos. So doing it because you know how doors are two doors, so it'd be one on each hand. Or do the whole thing on one hand and do it. What's Deco door 3 look like? Here, look at this. Look at those doors. Aren't they cool? So the idea of those being, and this is with I found some kind of software that did that. So you could chart it out. But it never got, see, look at that door. Oh, so cool. But wouldn't that make cool mittens? I don't know. So yeah, I just got all kinds of this stuff. Say hi, say bye to the boys. There we go. Yes, Knit Crochet Tiger. I agree. I love Envision Knit. I have been using Envision Knit since probably 2014, maybe. I mean, I've been using Envision Knit for a very long time. Here, actually, let me here. Here we go. We'll go back to screen share. Okay. So this is Envision Knit. I know that I'm over a bit of it. Here, under here is the knit palette. So where you can see, and if you look here, you've got basic stitches, increases, decreases, cables and twists, texture, brios, custom stitches, and you can make your own stitches and you can label your own stitches and you can do all kinds of things. Like if I put it in a straight line and I want, I mean, you can do all kinds of wacky, but I just wanted to do this because I wanted to show you that you can take this, right? And if I copy it and I paste it and I come up here and hit this little button here, it flips it in the other direction. So you can just, you can flip it. If I paste it again, I can tump it over on its side and do that with it. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. You can copy and paste. You can pick out your, if you go into the yarns, you can pick all different kinds of colors. You can add as many colors as you want. And then you can go and you have, it generates this and you know, it generates the instructions based on its, I never use that because I'm too controlling. But you've got, you know, this whole thing and you can, what I do is I go in and I take off the title and I take off all of this and I take off this. So I only have the chart. And then I go over here, and this is the main reason I selected this, because when I was shopping for these, there were not as many options as now. And this is Export SVG. And SVG, if you don't know what it stands for, is Scalable Vector Graphic. And what that means is that the chart that it outputs, I can make bigger or smaller, and it renders it with vector graphics so that there's no loss of quality. If you export it as a PNG or a JPEG or anything like that, there will hit a point that if you try to make it bigger, it'll start pixelating and you'll start losing quality. So one of the number one things that I needed in the software was an ability to export into an SVG. Now, if you are just using its like native pattern generation, which there are people who do, and I don't have anything against it. Um, if you go to here, this is, and you go in and you got to fill all this out, which I obviously haven't. This way I would see this is my registration name. So I need to go in here and go, and then I can type stuff in and blah, 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 blah. And it would generate, see that and say, here is where you talk about your pattern and sell it to people. Okay, and you can write as much as you want, and then you can add a photo. Let's go to, so now that you've seen all of this on my stuff, you know all my secrets. So this is where I put all of my photographs. And here we're going to go here. This is my most recent one. And let's go with this. And I've never done this. Like, I've never used this. So I don't know how this works. So here you can select all this. So I'm just going to say, okay. And there you go. So you can put your picture in and everything. And then, and I would have to change. So this is copyright 2025 by, there we go. That fixed that. And so you would have your information, pattern, and then it has your chart and your written instructions and your stitch glossary. So then you could just export this to PDF and boof, you're done. You're ready to go. So this is Envision It. It's got a lot of great, and I don't use it for anywhere near the amount of power that it has. But again, I bought it once in 2014 and I'm still using it today. I've never paid another cent for it, and it's integral to my process. So, okay. Yes, if you just Google Envision It, you'll grab it. Hi, Tracy. I'm so glad you're here. One of the other reasons I picked Envision It is because, again, at that time in the limited abilities, it was like Stitch Mastery and I think one other thing. I needed to have the ability, because I was doing the color work lace, I needed to have the ability to actually have, like, be able to change the color behind the symbols. And for a lot of them, their ability to do color work was kind of separate from their ability to do like lace symbols. So like if I was trying to do my color work and I wanted the knit two together symbol in a different color, as soon as I clicked on it, it turned it white because it was like, I don't know. I just couldn't get it to do what I wanted it to do. Envision It was the only one that did it easily and in a way that it worked for me. Now, it does cost money. And if you're not like doing a lot of charts, it's really not something that an average everyday knitter is going to need. But for a professional like me, like this is part of my job, that I definitely use it like all the time. Karen, even with all the secrets, you're going to leave the designing to me. I don't know if that's a good plan. Yeah, you can do amazing stuff with Envision It. And the woman who runs it is very, very responsive. I did have a problem with it and I contacted her and she fixed it for me. She's like, no, you need to do this. I'm like, well, thank you very much. And now it's fixed. So someone back a little while asked if I always chart first and then knit a swatch. And in general, yes. In general, that is what I'm doing. Because I think visually. I think in the charts. I have to like look at it. I can't really look at a block of written out instructions for a knitting pattern and effectively visualize how things are going to fit together. So for me, the charting software is very important. And I don't know. I don't know if I can find one. There are charts that I have done to solve problems in my brain where the chart ends up being 180 like 180 columns wide and 95 columns tall because I have literally charted out the entire shawl to make sure, because even though it's a little tedious, it's quicker than knitting the whole thing. So yes, I typically design in that, and in charts and then knit my swatch. Occasionally, I will, if it's something that's, like, very textural and that I have a better idea about how it's going to work, like, you know what's a good example? A good scarf. A good scarf was never a chart. A good scarf is something that just churned and churned and churned in my brain, and I would use a pencil and a paper and write out things and try to figure it out. Because initially it was, like, written out, and then I trimmed it down and trimmed it down. So there are times where the chart is not involved, but 95% of the time, I'm gonna make a chart first, and then I'm gonna knit a swatch. But as you've seen with all of the stuff I showed you, a lot of times it never makes it past chart. Those are all me brainstorming. These are all me sitting down and charting something out and trying to figure it out. And then if I don't think it's going to work for whatever it is I'm trying to do, it just gets backburnered, and then I very rarely come back to it, which is what I'm trying to do right now. I think I need to come back and revisit some of these ideas from a time when I was maybe a little more creative than I am right now. Like, and it is the ones I showed you, it's a lot more complex than stuff I've been doing recently. Okay, so Knit Crochet Tiger, you said you've had a lot of good help from her. So yeah, she's really good. Um, oh, thank you for joining me, Joke. You sleep well and get a lot of rest, okay? Um, do I make Justin? Hello, Justin. Welcome. Do I make shawls and ponchos? Shawls are the dominant amount of what I make lots of shawls. That is pretty much my bread and butter. I think it's a self-fulfilling kind of thing. Like, I started designing shawls and people like my shawls, so they want more shawls. So a lot of the people who like my work like shawls. So I will I'll be like, here's a hat. And they're like, nah, I want another shawl. So it just kind of like feeds on itself. I have designed a couple ponchos. Most of my ponchos are in my books because it's a place. The books were definitely a place. The books were a place where I could explore a little further, with what I do, because I didn't have to have the demand on the single pattern to sell as a single pattern. I was able to put things that were a little outside of what I typically do as, like, single patterns, um, because there are things that I would like to do, but that I really can't do as a single pattern because I just know nobody's gonna buy it, but that I was able to include in the books because it's part of a larger offering. So there are ponchos in both my books, and I don't know if I've published. You know, that's an interest I need to do I like ponchos. Ponchos are fun. Um, it just occurred to me that I honestly don't know. Here, I don't know if I've done a poncho for a single. I'm on Ravelry. I don't really want to screen share Ravelry because there are some people who can't really do Ravelry. So I am looking. Okay, so I'm looking at my Ravelry and in looking at categories. So clothing, I have one. Home, I have four. Components, I have one, and accessories, I have 143. So there you go. Um, I have designed 3 ponchos, and all 3 of them are in my books. So I need to do, and I have a poncho I did that was in a magazine, spin-off magazine. So I would say I've done 3 ponchos, 4 ponchos, but all of them been books or magazines. So I need to design a poncho that is available for independent sale. Is something I have to do. If you could press print and get a finished knit, that'd be nice. I'm glad you like a good scarf, Kathy. Do I like to twirl and dance in them like Stevie Nicks? So I don't actually wear anything that I make because I live in Florida, and what I make, I am what's called a process knitter, and I knit purely for the fun of knitting and for the challenge and to solve puzzles. So pretty much everything I make goes into one of the boxes that I showed you and stays in the box. So that's you like my bulky poncho? There are two technical bulky ponchos in that. So there's the green one, the big green one, the hearts and chains, and then there's Rocinati, which is one that's a rectangle that you put together. Actually, rectangles, like all ponchos are rectangles, but they are cool. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to do a fingering weight poncho, but then that would take like a year and a half, I think. Mm. So you like hearts and chains? That is a big one. That is one of the bigger pieces that I have, designed. I can honestly admit to you that that is one of the few pieces that I actually paid somebody else to knit, because um when I was doing that book, I just did not have the amount of time. I didn't have the time to both design and knit all 20 pieces. So hard the that poncho I because of how big it was, I had to farm out to somebody else. Have I dabbled with brioche knitting? No, knit crochet tiger. Have not done brioche. That might change when I move to Seattle, but one of the primary reasons I've never messed with brioche is because double thick fabric is not something that I have any interest in when I live in the climate that I live in. I also, and this is going to sound crazy considering what all I do, I find it to be too fiddly. Like I've done a tiny, like I tried it a little bit of it once and it just annoyed me because I just felt like I was knitting every row over and over and over again and never getting anywhere. But there's a lot of gorgeous brioche, and maybe I will play with it. Um, Heidi, I wish I could recommend a simple chart app that you could see if it's accessible. I don't know. I The only chart app I have any experience with is the one that I use. Once I got it and I liked it and I'm happy with it, I never tried any other ones. I'm very much if a very much a if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of person. So if I have something that is working for me, I'm not going to be like, well, there might be something better. Don't care. I don't want to have to learn how to use something new. So I'm afraid that's it. Oh my goodness, a brioche sweater in bulky alpaca? That is, that's a choice that you made there? I am so sorry. I mean, I bet it looks cool when it's, like, laying flat on the ground, but yeah, alpaca does not have the ability to stand up to its own weight in that kind of context. A lighter weight yarn might have been okay, but not a bulky. Bulky is it just doesn't have the grabby. It doesn't have enough grabby to it. It just kinda goes, I mean, it's not as bad as your plant fibers. It has some grab, but I'm sorry, Mark. That's a lot of work. That was a lesson to learn. And I've learned so many things the hard way. So many things the hard way. I just showed y'all Golden Lion Throne. Golden Lion Throne is in a sock yarn that has nylon in it, and it's like 2 inches shorter than it was when I mean, I keep on reblocking it. I learned that that if you're gonna do really fine lace, you should not use nylon. You can't use actual sock yarn, even though that's the same weight as fingering weight. So, it's another reason why it needs to be reknit. Yeah, I haven't heard of anything, Heidi. I'm sorry. I wish I did. You know what? You can just learn. Learning is good. Yes, frogging is always an option. It just turns magically back into yarn. It's amazing. It's like poof, I have more yarn. Um, I do love me some ponchos. Now I want to make a poncho. What kind of poncho should I make? See, one of the ponchos that's technically a poncho, I think might be more of a cape because it's knitting around and it's just like over the shoulders and elbows, as opposed to the rectangle style. You can make all kinds of stuff out of rectangles. DK weight's the best. I like DK weight. The yarn blob. You need to patent that, Knit Crochet Tiger. The yarn blob, the blob of yarn. Yes, there's so many things. I mean, yarn just does funny things. I always would have, again, I go back to one time where we had someone come into the store that I worked in, and she was showing me, she had the pattern she wanted, and it was an all over Aran style sweater. It had all the cables, it had all the fisherman cable stuff. And she's like, but I don't want to knit this in wool because it'll be too hot. I want to knit this in cotton. Can you show me cottons in this yarn weight? And I'm like, no, no, I'm not. I'm not going to show it to you because this, I mean, it was like knitting around. It had no structure to it. It had all of these cables to it. It was going to weigh like 15 pounds, but with that much cotton, and it would be like ankle length by the end of the day because all of the stuff would I was nice to her, but I was like, this is really not gonna give you a result that is gonna make you happy. I understand that that's what you want to do, but we don't always get to do what we want to do, you know? Sometimes the yarn is just like, no, that's not what I do. I have my own agenda. They have their own agenda. Something for your grandkids, nice. There's a podcaster that converts all of her shawls into ponchos. She knits them as shawls and then reknits them as ponchos. Well, that's interesting. I don't know that I could do it because I really can't knit the same thing twice, but technically, I guess that wouldn't be knitting the same thing twice. I've thought about those kind of things. I mean, because technically, like, you could take a triangle shawl and then determine at what point you want your shoulders and just make slits in it. I mean, that's entirely something you could do. Um, I've thought about making I once took a half circle shawl that I made, Till There Was You, and actually pinned, it's a true half circle, it's not a crescent. And I took it and I pinned it down and like, so it's like straight like this, right? I took the straight edge and folded it so that the straight edge was like neck width, and then the rest of the straight edge went straight down, and the curves were lined up, and then I like basted the curve up to here and curve up to here to leave, and so it was a half circle that you could stick your arms out of. And I was like, this is cool. But then I was like, trying to figure out how I could conceivably write the instructions on how to do that and have people be able to do it on their own, and it just bogged me down. I give up on things like that. I'm just like, I would get so many emails. I can't do it. Knitted your mama sweater with cotton yarn. It barely touched top of her butt. 4 years later, it's down to her knees. Yes, because that's what cotton do. Cotton has its own agenda. Cotton really, you got to stick with pieced sweaters that have structure, sweaters that you can put fake seams in it, but the best is knitting it in pieces and sewing it together. And that sewing gives that structure to it that prevents it. Also, if you can do one that like the knitting goes in different directions, like something that goes like this and then like this, because then it's not all hanging in the same way, that can also help a lot. Um, I don't really embroider on knitting. That's not, there are people who do it, but that's not my thing. I have beaded a lot of my shawls, but I don't think I would ever bead a poncho. Ponchos are, for me, ponchos are a lot more of a utilitarian garment. It's to keep you warm. I've put beads on plenty of shawls though. It's a winged alien. Yeah, kind of. That's what yes, Nancy. That is what I did. But it worked. It's just like how to describe this. And sometimes it's just because evaluating design is about desirability, but also reproducibility. It's figuring out a way to write what I'm doing in a way that other people can reproduce it. And if I can't do it effectively and smoothly, I don't I mean, even though it's something you can do, I don't wanna frustrate people. I don't want people to get frustrated with my patterns. When I write my patterns, I try very hard to make them flow and work for people, because I don't want people to be frustrated. I do like beads on stuff though. I need more beaded things. Um, I went through a beading phase. I do like beads. Why haven't I done beads recently? Beads were very popular for a while, and then they kind of fell off. Used to be you'd go into any yarn store and they would have beads, but not so much anymore. It's gotten a lot more, um, I don't know. I don't wanna say rustic because that's not the right word, but maybe cozy, comfy, didn't they do that Hygge, Hyggge? Um, the trends have gone in different directions, and it's gone away from lacy and beady and towards more snuggly and comfy. Um, so, you know, you go with the flow. Okay, so we're looking at an hour and 21 minutes. So we have talked about a lot. Does anybody have any more knitting related questions? Utilitarian. Um, I'm trying to avoid words. What I was trying to do is avoid words that had like negative connotations to them because there's still a lot of really beautiful stuff being made. But it's not fancy. There was a fancy phase, where it was all the gradients that are in the beautiful colors that went through a lot of fancy gradients and they had beads and it would be heavily like very lacy and everything. And that has fallen. I mean, now it's the Sophie scarf and the boxy sweaters that have the armpits somewhere at your waist with the huge colorwork yoke. So they're still decorative. It's just a different aesthetic, that does not lend itself to beats. Oh, yes, Cindy, thank you very much. If you could give it the thumbs up, I would appreciate it. Let people practical is also good, but I would argue that those sweaters that the armpits are actually somewhere at the waist and make you have T-Rex arms, not the most practical garments, but that's a pet peeve of mine. Can you see one of my beaded shawls? Sure. Let me pull one up and then we'll share screen. How about Earthbound Misfit? So we're gonna screen share. There we go. This is Earthbound Misfit. And in here, so, and this I did in two different colors. You can really see the beads in this picture. Earthbound Misfit uses a gradient, and so what you do is you have a panels of texture that alternate with panels of lace, and the lace is beaded. So Earthbound Misfit is a beaded shawl, and then what is Bitter Blue? Bitter Blue is a beaded shawl. Now, the concept behind Bitter Blue is that Bitter Blue is a gradient. Again, I did these in conjunction with the yarn company and the bead company. So it's a gradient, but then the beads gradient as well in the opposite direction of the yarn. So here up here in the yellow, you see that it's blue beads, and then it goes through blue and green beads, and eventually you have the yellow beads in the blue. So it's the same colors that are in the gradient, it's just going in the opposite direction. And I did these huge lines. It's these areas, literally it's beaded every other stitch so that you can get this effect of the gradient. And you can see it also ends up in the lace. So this is called bitter blue. And what else is beaded? Each to each is beaded. Each to each is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And you can see there's beads here, and then there's beads down here. The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and then this is also supposed to be mermaidy. So, because the mermaid sang each to each, these are supposed to be like whale tails, and then this is supposed to be the fisherman's net with the beads being the sparkling water. So that's each to each. So there's a couple of my, I think those are the only three. I might have more. I don't remember. Um, Square isn't a sweater for a guitarist. I can see that. Do I have any tips for weaving in the ends of super bulky yarns? I made a sweater out of bulky, mostly acrylic yarn, and it looked very noticeable. So if it is a plied yarn, what I would do is take those plies and tease them out, depending on how many plies you have. But thinking if it's a bare minimum of 2, split them in 2. If you need more, split them more, and weave in those plies separately, because then they're skinnier and they're not going to have quite as obvious of a impact. And also definitely, well, it's acrylic, so you might not have blocked it, but weaving in before you block is also helps compress and minimize, especially in natural fibers. I don't really know how that affect an acrylic fiber, but yeah, splitting out the plies and weaving in the plies separately. Now that's going to make more ends for you to weave in, but it will make it less noticeable. Oh, Susie Q, what do you mean? You threw a sweater away? Oh, that's not good. Did I have to acquire permission to use the song title? No, I didn't. Um, if someone were to come to me and say, "Don't do that," would I change it? Sure, but they're just they're just words, I guess. But no, I didn't. I didn't. It's just which song title was it? Bitter Blue? Is that the one that you caught? Most people don't even catch that it's a song title. I don't typically use song titles. I do frequently use like lines from songs. Um, but I don't know that that's against the rules. If anyone were to ever tell me it was against the rules, I would be fine with not doing it. But yeah, Earthbound Misfit is from Learning to Fly. I have Unheeded Warnings from Learning to Fly. I have I have a I have a shawl named "There Is Water at the Bottom of the Ocean" from Burning Down the House. No, water above me, water below me. There's water at the bottom of the ocean. It's Talking Heads. I have a pair of fingerless mitts called "I Can't Control My Fingers," and I have a hat that's called "I Can't Control My Brain," and that's from the Ramones. I do a lot of song phrases from song titles, but I think "Bitter Blue" is the only title I have used. And it's just a lot of times it's a song because it's like that's the song that's going through my head when I'm doing it. You had to have lunch with Martin Scorsese over that issue? Well, I would say that was a win. I would definitely say that was a win because being able to have lunch with Martin Scorsese would be good. So if Cat Stevens wants to come have dinner with me, I would happily not use the name of his song. um, it's I don't know. I hmm. I might have to look into that. I'm learning stranded color work. What is the position of yarn? What is the position of yarn for color dominance hand, your right hand, your left hand? I am afraid that I don't do stranded color work, so I cannot answer that question. Somebody else might be able to. Uh, oh, no, I have not met him and I doubt I ever will. That's unfortunate. Um, that's unfortunate. I don't think Cat Stevens gonna come after me though. Is he even still alive? I think he's still alive. Um, mm, he looks like he's still alive. Hello, Tsunkla fiber artist. Wanted to say hi and thank you for the books and videos. You're welcome. And somebody else said something super nice. I really, really appreciate you that you enjoy my videos. It's great to think. Crocheters who crochet because of Stevie Nicks, 100% know that. Yes, Arn and Carlos are excellent on stranded knitting, but I'm afraid that I am not a stranded knitter. I've done one stranded knitting piece, and it was like the second year I was knitting. I made a Christmas stocking for my son, and I was like, nope, don't like that. And so now I do mosaic. I do slip stitch color work exclusively. So I'm afraid I'm not good for guiding you on stranded knitting. I do know color dominance is an issue. I think it's just you need to be consistent with it. I don't know. I don't know. Um, Now back to Mark the bass player. So I have a whole series of shawls that are Dune themed that have names like that's what Golden Lion Throne is, and Sardukar and Atreides and all those kinds of things. And I do know that at a Dragon Con, my husband was having a conversation with Kevin J. Anderson, and he mentioned to Kevin J. Anderson that I did these shawls and named them after that. And Kevin J. Anderson said, "Oh, that's cool. Don't ever mention that to Brian." So I kind of feel like I sort of have the okay on that one, but I'm just not supposed to talk to Brian Herbert about it. But apparently Kevin J. Anderson was cool. So I don't know. I don't know. He's 76. It's great that he's still alive. I grew up with Cat Stevens music. It was one of my father's favorites. So Bitter Blue is quite possibly my favorite. Like it's a comfort song for me. Um, it's when I stayed home sick from school, my dad would play Cat Stevens while I was laying in the sunroom being like sick. So it's a very comforting. He would play Tea for the Tillerman um, for me, and I love it. Now, Arne, that's interesting, Knit Crochet Tout. The Arne and Carlo did a few videos about dominant yarn and color work. Norway, they managed not to have dominant yarn. The Norwegian knitting is a very specific style, and the way they tension their yarn is very specific. So I'm curious. I would be curious to know if it applied effectively to other um, knitting styles. But I also know there's like the philosopher's wool is what there's I think it was philosopher wool. Um so philosopher's wool stranding method, I believe is what I used. Um and there's like a DVD, but I'm also seeing at least one video on it from 2017. So if you look up philosopher's wool stranded knitting, and it's literally P8 here. Philosopher's wool stranded knitting. If you Google that, and you might be able to find that. I'm pretty sure is what I used. Two color brioche knitting and jacquard work. That sounds exciting. See, it's cool that everybody does everything. Well, my understanding is when he, thought he saw heaven, we got a lot of really cool music out of that, so I'm down with that. If it whatever inspires you and gives your creativity a boost. I mean, sucks that you got sick, but if you could get something positive out of it, that is amazing. Um, okay. As usual, we have quite the, range of conversation. I have enjoyed it as always. Y'all are super duper fun. Definitely, if you're well, he changed his name and then he changed it back, Tracy, because he did several different things. Um, listen to heavy metal. I've listened to heavy metal before. I listen to all kinds of music. Right now I'm heavily into K-pop, but only specific bands, and actually T-pop, which is Thai pop music. So there's all kinds of and I this one really great song that is in heavy rotation on my phone is a Congolese song. It's this guy singing in French and Congolese. It's a really great song. It's called Est-ce que tu m'aimes something. That is I was looking for my phone. Yeah, that's such a good song. All kinds. It's funny. I got all kinds of crazy music on my phone. There's such a wide variety, and I keep on stumbling across stuff that I hear the music, and I'm like, that is really cool. And then I go and find out what it is, and it's just this scatter shot of when I put my random play on the stuff I've put in my phone, what I'm gonna get. You never know. I never know. It's in Spanish, it's in French, it's in Chinese, it's in Thai, it's in Korean, it's in English, it's in everything. And I just really enjoy music, period. Oh my gosh, did I actually mumble French that was actually understandable a little tiny bit? I mean, is did I actually manage to pull it off? Casey, I'm glad you recognized it. You worked on W-2s. That doesn't sound like fun. Glad I could make it a little more entertaining. Friday, there's so much exciting stuff out there. I mean, so much exciting stuff out there, and the internet makes it all accessible to us. So it's really fun, and I try not to have a closed mind. What is the? Oh, there's my phone. You want to see something funny? My lock screen. He's he's that's my kangaroo. And the thing that brings me great joy every time I see this is that I know that after I took that picture, I reached out and scratched in between the ears. So it brings me great joy. It makes me super, super happy. Um, what is that? So I have this list of random songs, and literally it's a playlist named Random Songs that when I get a song stuck in my head and I can't quit doing, I play it. And if I play it enough, it goes on the random song list. Um, yeah, Est-ce que tu m'aimes by Gims, Gims, and he's from the Congolese. Um, is really good. And just the other day, I added "Girlfriend" by Matthew Sweet because it was in my head, and I was like, "What's that song? What's that song? I need to listen to that song." And so that ended up on there because that was a good song. Um, Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you like the tutorials. That is something I'm just gonna do. Anytime, like I am always looking for ideas of videos that I can make. So, like you're saying you like my tutorials. Well, if there's something that you're like, I wish there was a tutorial on X, as long as it doesn't involve garments, socks, or stranded knitting, I might be able to do it. Or steeking. Yeah, I'm not gonna steek anything. But basic stuff I can normally do. Comment on one of the just comment on a video that you happen to be watching, because I'm always now I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to do it, but if you listen to many of my recent videos, it's like I'm making this video because somebody on our Facebook group said XYZ. or someone in the comments asked XYZ. And it's not necessarily that I'm going to specifically do what you asked me to do, but it's might your question might have pinballed my brain into a direction that I was like, oh, they might find this interesting. So always ask questions. And if you want to make a request, as long as you're good with it, maybe not being like what you wanted it to be, let me know. Let me know because it's really helpful. It must be cool to have all those different gigs shake Lucas loose in your brain because you remember weird things. Yeah, like I was doing something and yeah. So yeah, but that song, The Girlfriend is really good. Um I enjoyed that one. So, thank you all very much for watching and chatting with me and participating in this kind of collaborative kind of situation. I hope you liked that little dive into all of the stuff I have on my computer and the look into like behind what I do. I was trying to do something for this live that was a little more planned than our normal just random chaos. And I hope that that wasn't too boring. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any, again, questions, ideas, things like that, comment on videos, comment in the channel, the Facebook group, comment on an Instagram post, any of that kind of things. Yes, I'm glad you were here with us the whole time, Mark. You were here getting to end. A lot of you were. And I love recognizing all of your names. And again, if any of y'all are on the West Coast in the Seattle area, I might be coming to you soon and it will be super fun. Um, oh, the house search is going to be exciting. It's going to be very exciting. Like, but it's really different looking for something to rent versus something to buy. The stakes are a little bit lower, so it's not going to be that horribly. Thank you, Heather Holly. Why do you have two names, two first names? Thank you, Heather Holly, for joining us. Thank everyone for joining us. And I will see you soon. We will definitely be. I have gotten my hurricane season pattern back from the tech editor. She was really backed up. So I will be definitely releasing a new pattern in February. Hurricane season will be out. And then I got to start on something new. So thank y'all so much. I had tons of fun and I will see you soon. We got to push the button that says, and Florida, Washington, which is quite the it's gonna be. Maybe I'll see if I can find yarn stores along the way in video for you guys. So I'll talk to you guys later. Have lots of fun. Happy knitting. Clicking the button here and